It was the height of summer, and the days were long and warm, perfect for an adventure. Boy Cat and Girl Cat, a loving couple who adored spending time together, decided it was the ideal time to escape the city and immerse themselves in nature. They planned a camping trip deep in the heart of the forest, where they could enjoy the peace and tranquility that only the wilderness could offer. Excitement bubbled between them as they packed their car with all the essentials: tents, food, and a cozy blanket to share under the stars. As the sun set, casting a golden hue over the landscape, they set off, eager for the journey ahead. The road to the forest was long and winding, and as night fell, the world around them grew darker and more mysterious. The headlights of their car cut through the inky blackness, revealing only the narrow path ahead, while the trees loomed like silent giants on either side. Despite the late hour, their spirits were high, and they chatted cheerfully about the adventures that awaited them. But as they ventured deeper into the forest, something unsettling began to creep into the air. The once smooth purr of the engine turned to a sputter, and before they knew it, the car lurched to a stop. The engine gave a final feeble cough before falling silent.
"Oh no, not now."
Boy Cat muttered, his confidence wavering as he tried to restart the car. But it was no use. The vehicle was dead, stranded in the middle of the dark forest. Girl Cat's ears twitched nervously as she glanced around, the oppressive darkness pressing in on them. "What's wrong?"
"I'm not sure. Let me see if I can find some help."
With that, Boy Cat stepped out of the car, the door creaking loudly in the stillness of the night. He pulled out his phone, raising it high as he desperately searched for a signal, but the forest seemed to swallow all connection to the outside world. Girl Cat watched him from inside the car, her heart beginning to race as the eerie silence settled around them. To distract herself, she reached over and turned on the radio, hoping for some music to ease her growing anxiety. But instead of a soothing melody, a crackling voice filled the car, delivering news that made her blood run cold.
A psychotic man has escaped from a nearby mental hospital. He is extremely dangerous. Avoid the area and do not approach.
Her eyes widened in horror, her breath catching in her throat. She quickly turned off the radio, but the damage was done. The words echoed in her mind, sending a shiver down her spine. She glanced outside, her eyes searching for Boy Cat, but he was out of sight, lost somewhere in the darkness. A sudden rustling noise outside the car jolted her from her thoughts. Her heart pounded in her chest as she strained to hear. The noise came again, closer this time, and her fear spiked. Unable to bear the suspense, she grabbed her phone and stepped out of the car, the cool night air brushing against her fur. "Hey, anyone is there?" Her voice trembling, but there was no answer. She dialed his number, her paws shaking as she held the phone to her ear, but all she heard was the hollow sound of ringing. And then, in the distance, a scream pierced the night. Panic surged through her, and she ran toward the sound, her mind racing with fear. She called out his name again and again, her voice breaking as she ventured deeper into the forest. The trees closed in around her, their branches reaching out like twisted fingers. Then she saw him. Boy Cat lay on the ground, his once strong and confident form now cold and lifeless. Scratches marred his face, and his eyes stared blankly at the sky. Girlfriend Cat fell to her knees beside him, a scream of terror ripping from her throat. But her horror was far from over. From the shadows, he emerged, the Hookman, a monstrous figure with bulging muscles and a twisted grin, his massive hook dripping with blood. He loomed over her, his presence suffocating, his eyes gleaming with malice. Girl Cat's instincts kicked in, and she turned and ran, her scream echoing through the forest as she fled. The branches tore at her dress, her fur, but she didn't stop. Behind her, Hookman gave chase, his heavy footsteps thundering closer with each passing second. She ran until her legs burned, until her breath came in ragged gasps. But just when she thought she might have lost him, she tripped on a stone and fell hard to the ground. Dazed, she looked up, her heart pounding as she saw Hookman standing over her, his hook raised, ready to strike. But then, a miracle. the sound of an approaching car shattered the tense silence, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Hookman hesitated, his twisted grin faltering as the light swept over him. Two men stepped out of the car, their flashlights piercing the shadows as they cautiously made their way through the trees. But by the time they reached the spot, it was too late. Hookman had vanished, leaving only the lifeless bodies of Boy Cat and Girlfriend Cat behind. The men, shocked and horrified, immediately called the police. Within minutes, the forest was swarming with officers, their lights flashing in the darkness. But no matter how hard they searched, there was no trace of Hookman. It was as if he had melted into the shadows, leaving only fear in his wake. And as the police packed up and left, the forest grew quiet once more. But in the distance, from the depths of the woods, a sinister laugh echoed through the night. Hookman was still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting for his next victim. And so, the forest remains a place of fear, a place where the echoes of terror linger, where the darkness hides unspeakable horrors, and where the legend of Hookman continues to haunt those who dare to enter.